rồi hai mươi điểm làm như này cho được lúc sau chúng mới này hôm nay cái là sao cái bắt đầu rồi mà mình rồi chơi là bắt đầu slide lên để rồi nó được cái bây giờ nó làmได้rồi bây giờ nó học biết nha 어떤 게 말이야. 나도 아이 타고 게임 하면 잡아 escape from 그렇게 패시브 스스로 나고 그러면 너무 GT야 GT 같은 이래가 좀 이야기. 가장 먼저 여기 파에 그냥 동그라미야. 아니, 이거는 저기 뭐가 이게 가서 가이나 아니 나 뭐냐 하게 나 이거는 그 하게 나 이거 저 잘했다 그게야. 그렇게 그렇게 잡고 관리를 이렇게 했거든. 너무 하루야 해 비슷비슷다. karena dia noita. Ini nama saya 0065. Itu sih jalan kamu sih nama saya yang perlu saya nama sih nama 0065. Ada cok. Ada tuh nama itu orang yang lagi cellphone pulsa kita. Apa yang cellphone itu dah?
You have to clear the area because I think we go clockwise. Take this. Step now, move step away. One couple of them,
After this, they can keep it, because in future.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
पूर्वाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषः शुद्धवादी पाश्चात्यादि सकारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य श्रीवासव जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासवति गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासवति गौर भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna
In the presence of His Holiness, Sripad Maharaj, it is a very rare thing to be specific. If you are in a desert, and if you get scattered rain in a desert, that is very welcome. So similarly, in this Dham, it is very easy to be overcome by sense enjoyment and sense gratification. But it is very difficult for us to make spiritual advancement unless one is of a very steady mind and one has obtained the mercy of the Vaishnavas, Guru and Krishna. So in that sense, one will come to the main entrance of spiritual life. Henceforth, if one can obtain the mercy of a great Vaishnava, to get initiated by that particular personality is like a rainfall in the desert. So as such, one has to understand that the primary duty of a human being, a saintly human being, is to make spiritual advancement. Otherwise, he has no business being two-legged. He can become four-legged, because then he will become Dvipada Pasu, two-legged animal. So it is of no use. So in that sense, the absolute necessity of accepting spiritual master is stated, and we have come across this verse many times. Tat vidhi pranibhartena pariprastena sevayaha upatekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart the knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. And it's also stated, Brahmanda Brahmite Konabhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhaktilata Bija. According to the karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down to the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of kripa, of devotional service. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, page 332. Tad vijñārtam sagurum eva vigajat samik panihi srotriyam brahmanishtam. That means in order to learn this transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master in disciplined succession, who is fixed in the absolute truth. This is in Mundaka Upanishads, and it's also in Science of Self-Realization, page number 71. Yasya devi parabhaktir yatha devi tata guru yasya te kadita hi artha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who simultaneously have implicit faith in both the Lord and the Supreme Master, Spiritual Master, are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. That is Sripad Upanishads, page 561. Page 56. You must forgive me, I am a little sleepy. Om Adhyana Timirandasya Jnana Adhyana Sala. For accepting the Spiritual Master. Then we have come to the point of understanding the significance of it. Next is, what is the qualification of the disciple? Right? Guru is qualified already. Now, is the disciple qualified? So, interest in the material bodily conception. He must give up material lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. He should be interested only in understanding the science of God, and he should be ready to consider all points in this matter. He should no longer think, I am this body, or this thing belongs to me. One must love the spiritual master with unflinching faith, and one must be very steady and fixed. The bona fide disciple should be inquisitive to understand transcendental subject matter. He must not search out faults. He must not search out faults among good qualities. And he should no longer be interested in material topics. His only interest should be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, page 267, 270 to 271. So we can understand that this is the significance of one who is ready for spiritual initiation. And after the initiation, or rather I will go on to the relationship. In the material world, a servant serves the master as long as the servant is pleased and as long as the master is pleased. The servant is pleased as long as the master pays, and the master is pleased as long as the servant renders good service. However, in the spiritual world, if the servant cannot serve under certain conditions,
गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमानधर्मा यस्तादेव विष्णुतराभिवादि गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि भजामि यश्चक्षुरे च सविता सकलाग्रहाणां राजा समस्तसुरमो विरसेष तेजः यश्च जीवा यदातमात्मविभवः प्रकटप्रभावः गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्सोन्द्रमहो स्वकर्मा बन्धानुरूपफलभाजनमातनोति कर्माणि निर्दहति किञ्च भक्तिभाजम् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं
You want to start now, Maharaj, or you want to start after this? Yeah, because the fire will burn up the wood.
Prabu, let me go on that information. Zero on that information.
Okay, the thing is, I'll check with Maharaj.
No.
Anande. You have a drum? We have a drum. You know how to play the drum? Vaishnava Thakura Dayar Sagara Eda Se Karuna Koi 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 Diya Parashaya Shodaye Amaya Tomar Choron Koi Diya Parashaya Shodaye Amaya Tomar Choron Koi Tomara Choron Koi Tomara Choron Tomara Choron संग देहे हमारे उसी संग वैष्णव ठाकुर दयाल सागर एदा से करुणा होई वैष्णव ठाकुर एदा से करुणा होई नहीं पाए बहाल हरे नाम संकीर्तन एदा से आभार नहीं पाए बहाल हरे नाम तुम्हें कृपा कोई स्वाभिंद दिया देव कृष्ण नाम तुम्हें तुम्हें कृपा कोई स्वाभिंद
कृष्ण देते पार तुम्हारा शक्ति आशे स्वामी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोले मैं तब पाशे पाशे तुम्हारे छोड़ो न धोरी दिया छाया छोड़ो माया तुम्हारे छोड़ो न धोरी तुम्हारा छोड़ो न धोरी तुम्हारा छोड़ो न धोरी Kamana choro na chori, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
आनंद कोटि नामचार्य ठाकुर विजय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री दैत्य गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद जय. It must be rejected. In other words, the spiritual, there is some kind of a fundamental spiritual, let's say, element there intuitively, and so that aham brahmasmi, I am the eternal, the spiritual servant, say in our Vaishnava tradition, Vaishnava servant of Krishna. And that's what aham brahmasmi means. I am the eternal servant of the Lord. I am the spiritual spark. I am the spiritual conscious being. Now this is the answer that the question of his life. But without understanding that, it is impossible to actually do anything in life. Because you have to know what we are living beings. Angry, oh he has said it, this Prabhu has said to me, so why should I go to this ISKCON? And Prabhu has just said like this, and then yes, I don't speak to them, and I have nothing to do with them. And because you see, we have so many things in the different parts of the world, but because we did not, let's say, focus the basic foundational, let's say, principle of what life is. Because so therefore, the whole Krishna consciousness is actually to find the answer what is life. We join these young boys come, or the people come from different backgrounds, they join Krishna consciousness, and after some time you get upset or something happens, then sometimes these things happen because the material nature is so powerful that you see anything can happen any moment to anyone. So, therefore, we have to have a strong commitment and a foundation on the basic principles of what life is. The life, indeed, the scientists are trying to understand what life is, but they have different paradigm. And among the religious groups of the world, there's very little understanding what life is. Just like our Christian brothers and sisters say, their life means only the human beings. The animals, the birds, sometimes they say they don't have the soul. So therefore you can do anything just like any commodity because they don't have the soul. But that is what it's just a interpretation that Prabhupada used to say, well in the commandment say, one of the commandment, thou shalt not kill. Prabhupada used to say, why very many cardinals or priests. But then why you kill him? But Jesus meant only the human beings. But it's not, this is an interpretation. It's not. So therefore, you see, there's a lot of confusion. And the Buddhists say, no, there's no life, there's no soul. But sometimes they believe in reincarnation. So if the soul is not there, so there's a refutation about the existence of soul. So this is one of their philosophical conceptions. But how is it? It's irrational. If we don't have, so therefore, this is some kind of it's not rational. So it's misconception. So therefore, the foundation of spiritual life. So therefore, the spiritual life just like I said yesterday, dharma. Dharma is a very appropriate word in the Vedic culture. Dharma is everything. And so dharma, the religion is a very poor translation. It doesn't actually convey the real meaning of dharma. The spiritual in English, we can translate this to use spirituality, the spiritual wisdom, spiritual principle. Don't use the word religion, because the religion is some kind of it is very incomplete. Therefore, I prefer to use spiritual wisdom and dharma. That is our principle is to understand the real meaning of life. This is a cosmic creation. But then we have to ask why this world is created. So this is another two. So if you find these two answers, the whole process of Krishna consciousness actually to get the answers of these questions. What is life? Once you know who you are, what is life, then what is my relationship with the Lord, the Supreme Lord? So that comes the whole spectrum of the devotional sense of that process. But without that knowledge, the foundation, if the foundation is not strong, anything that you will build, then someday it will crumble and it will not last very long. But therefore, we want a lasting, let's say, individual. It can be understood from different backgrounds. So therefore, we have to we convince ourselves that Krishna consciousness means we want to know what is life. But why I speak a different language? As a cosmic philosophy, cosmic as a creation. So these two questions are very important. Especially for the human being. So Sripad Goswami was required by Sripad Maharaj. It was authorized. This is the authorized. This is tradition. This is the Vedic process of knowledge. So that's what he says. According to the authorized Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So among these 9 processes, the 3 are most important. That means the hearing and chanting, the remembering about this wonderful holy names of the Supreme Lord. So this is the way that the parampara, authorized parampara process. Now in this process, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. So this is clear, right? Jai Sankirtan Matvaye, Yadanti Shumeda means just the opposite of alpha meda. Alpha is very tiny and Shumeda is even better. It's good. Those who have got little brain, good brain symptoms will be like that. So therefore this is very clear. This is for the age of Kali. You see, in this Vedic cosmology, you see the process of receiving spiritual product and Kali, this is the process. So I don't go through those because time is pressed. So therefore this has to be, so this is very clear. Because you see, the time scale that we need, this is time and space. In cosmology, time and space is very interesting. You see, time, there is a space, so space and the time, the scientists, they say our average life should be at least 200 years. The scientists are working on that. And so in this way, according to this age of Kali, therefore those things, for the 3 millennia which are the past, so those processes are not practical. So for this process, we just have to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then life will become successful. So this is the very simple and very practical process. Now, in the Padma Purana, in order to make it more effective in this process of chanting, the Padma Purana describes that we safeguard ourselves from the 10 offenses in chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. but it is very elaborately described in the Padma Purana. And Prabhupada explains very nicely in this Srimad Bhagavatam about his thorn process. That's why I'm reading this. So in Padma Purana, so the first offense to be avoided is that one must be very careful not to blaspheme that the Vaishnavas and the Vaishnavis who have dedicated their lives in preaching. So I must say this is very simple and very practical. In other words, this can be applied, extended in various ways. So therefore, we request that no one should criticize anyone. In other words, so it's not, sometimes it's not so easy to control because anger comes automatically without being invited. So we have to culture. Therefore, it requires little discipline. You see, you have to, in order to be free from anger, so it requires a different type of orientation. And it's not very easy at the beginning. But if we become a little conscious, then you can slowly, and start becoming angry, so you just keep a smile. That is a lot easier. So that is the process. This is according to the Padma Purana. And the second offense, let's see, respect of the law in terms of worldly distinction. In other words, we have to be very careful that we should not relate anything with the material. The chanting of this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is purely on the spiritual platform. So therefore, we should not tie together with any material conception. So that should be the way of safeguarded. And the third offense is that one must obey the order of the spiritual master 100%. Oftentimes we encounter that see, these things are easy to say, but in real practical life, how to apply. I think this has to be also, these are very individual things. Your individual realization, individual discipline, individual commitment, and this is very important. So in the life of a person, so you cannot, you already get the instruction, but I have to think about how to apply it, So Vedic knowledge, you see, Vedic knowledge is spoken as revealed knowledge, so these are only for the welfare of humanity. For the well-being of humanity, the Lord said in the previous millennia, before Kali Yuga, everything was transmitted through oral tradition. From Guru to Sishya. So this oral tradition was there before the advent of Kali Yuga. But in Kali Yuga, we have so much alpha matter. Our brain substance is very influenced by so many negative thoughts. So therefore, we can't even remember. Somebody say one name yesterday, but I forgot immediately this morning. So therefore, it is not very easy to remember. There's thousands and thousands of Vedic versions. But in the previous millennia, is that we are told that if the master recites one time, the Shishya can remember immediately. Not only that, but for lifelong. So we don't have the name of the Lord. It's Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Is very powerful spiritual medicine. And so we have to therefore respect and honor, and nothing to do with the material conception. Interpret the holy name. Now this interpret is coming. Interpret means you use it, misuse it in the wrong way, just to suit your own conception. So that is but interpret means to understand. The real interpretation will be to understand that the holy name is none different from Krishna. So this understanding is called the real understanding, the real, if you say interpretation, the spiritual interpretation of the to be avoided. And the seventh offense is to commit sins intentionally understand the holy name. It's very important that after understanding all these things, if you do intentional, that the holy name will forgive me by chanting holy name, and my sinful activities will be eradicated. It should not be like that. In other words, one has to be very carefully, one must pray. Actually, one must, therefore the humility comes. So unless I find method to be equal to some material auspicious activity. In other words, this is some kind of interpretation. So you interpret saying that by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and everything will be, all the wrongdoings, the full glories of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, this is for those preachers. For the preachers, and especially our new bhaktas who come to the movement, so unless you are fully equipped with the basic fundamental, let's say, little knowledge, then you should be very careful to in preaching. Because in preaching, then sometimes you may develop some argument, and unnecessarily there may be an unwanted change of its thoughts. So that's not very good. Therefore, for the beginners, it is always good to take it very to the holy name of the Lord, even after hearing about the transcendental nature of the holy name. So therefore, after understanding all this, and it's important instructions about the holy name, if we do it intentionally and if we don't obey, then this is regarded as a great offense. So therefore, we have to avoid this. At every step, we should recognize how to engage this culture. Yet go through whatever activity that you have, that activity should be used in order to glorify the Supreme. So Krishna said, Yat karosi snasi, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away. But Krishna said that Guru Swamadarpanam, do that as an offering to the Lord. So this is the process. So with that, I'd like to follow our, make the coconut. This is coconut water, and in that coconut water, put some spices of that tender coconut. The tender coconut is a kind of floating there. And then, in that, I don't know what they put, but good morning. For the benefit of all of us and then for yourself, please tell us the 4 principles.
No eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no diseases.
And human arms, chanting.
No 16 hours.
So, yes, so very nice. So we pray that God blesses the Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas. Become a sincere follower of Prabhupada's mission. So your name will be Rupa Chandra Das Brahmachari. You get the blessings of Prabhupada. Priya came one time in Manipur and strong, and the mind becomes very strong, and the mind over matter. I think.
He likes to walk.
I see. Maybe somebody can help him. So you can just stand there, but it's difficult there. Yeah. So what to say the 4 principles? Mine. So I'm putting all Chandra. So your name is Veer Chandra Das. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Under there. Sometimes. So we can ask that speak English.